When we say we have freedom of expression, when our institution says you are not supposed to put something in the social media against the institution or anything, we have to see both the side. Institution having a right to run the institution, it is their professional right. They have a fundamental right to do. At the same time, we have a fundamental right. It will change. What is fair for me may be unfair for others. The problem is if we are going to introduce corporeal punishment or we are going to use harsh words, the mind of the students we can't understand how they will react. Today, I will be speaking about scope and limits of freedom of expression in education. When we say freedom of expression, in reality, we are talking about freedom of speech. Because if you look at the legal basis of freedom of expression, it is there in the Constitution of India as a fundamental right. Now, that fundamental right is not just freedom of expression, it is freedom of speech and expression. So, re- removing speech from expression or removing expression from speech, that is not in fact possible. When we say freedom of speech, it includes freedom of expression. When we say freedom of expression, it includes freedom of speech also. So, today we will be focusing exclusively on education. That is, I will speak on the context of two premise. One is from the student's premise, another is from the teacher's premise. How far we have freedom of expression in our country. Well, as an introduction, let me tell you the legal basis of this right. We have our constitution in which Article 19(1)(a). This is the basis of freedom of speech and expression in our country. It says all citizens shall have the right to freedom of speech and expression. So when we say freedom of expression or freedom of speech and expression, it includes many things, including right to speak, write, publish, freedom of press, artistic or creative expressions, academic freedoms, democratic participation, and many other things. In simple words, when we say freedom of speech and expression, I would say anything and everything which a person is doing for communicating something to others. That is what our freedom of expression. So it is not just writing or speaking or artistic creation only. It includes anything and everything which we are using to communicate something to others. That is what our freedom of expression, which is guaranteed under Article 19(1)(a). Now, what is its scope? If you look at the scope of this right, there are many judicial interpretations in our country. Our Honorable High Court as well as Supreme Court, through various decisions, have explained what is the scope of this freedom of expression. Instead of saying many cases, I'll just tell you what is the scope point wise. Starting from freedom of speech. It, through many judgments, the court has clarified, the judiciary has clarified, it includes a right to express one's own view and opinions. So, as a part of freedom of speech and expression, one can express his views and opinions. It can be done it orally or through lectures or debates or in writing or as a novel or drama in any way. Secondly, this right or this freedom includes freedom of writing and publication. You can write anything and you can publish. That is also covered. The third one is freedom of press. That is considering your writing as a medium and you can circulate it, you can disseminate it as a newspaper or magazine or any other similar media. Then it includes freedom of artistic and creative expressions. You can create any art. You can express yourself through music, or you can express yourself through paintings, or any creative forms. Then academic freedom. Being a teacher, being a researcher, we have freedom to teach, learn, conduct research, publish, and engage in academic debates, etc. Then freedom of political expression. One can discuss about public affairs, criticize the government, its policies, participate in other political debates, and advocate for changes. Then it includes freedom of commercial speech. It is like advertisement. One can advertise. They can give information about their services, their goods, and other related business activities. Then, most importantly, freedom of speech and expression includes a right to receive information. That includes a right to seek, receive, and impart information and idea through any media or sources. Now, this through any media or source, that is actually wider term. It includes through even electronic means or through internet media. So one can access internet. That is also covered under this freedom of speech and expression as a part of freedom of speech and expression. One of the first cases decided by our Honorable High Court only, wherein they said as a part of freedom of speech and expression, one can claim access to internet also. That is for seeking information. Then digital and online expression specifically. We have many social media platforms, blogs, podcasts, etc. So we can use any digital or any similar media for expressing ourselves through internet or online. Then freedom to protest. As a part of this freedom of expression, you have a right to protest. Then right to know. That is another important right. You have a right to know. We have many legislations, including our Right to Information Act, through which you can seek any information or you can seek any knowledge from any public office. Then, along with all these, it includes freedom of silence also. That means if you want, you can keep quiet. If you want, you can simply keep become mute. That means when we say freedom of speech and expression, many things are there which you can positively do it. At the same time, as a part of this right, you can claim a right to silence. So this is the scope of freedom of speech and expression in our country. Whatever I said, these are all discussed in or developed through many judicial decisions. We have very well known decisions, judicial decisions. Now, coming to importance of freedom of expression, I think it is not necessary to explain. Everybody know what is the importance of freedom of speech and expression. But still, since I have made this slide, I will just tell you. Freedom of expression or freedom of speech is highly essential to promote democratic governance and accountability. Unless and until the people are allowed to question, discuss, and hold the authorities accountable, we cannot promote democratic governance and accountability. Secondly, this is highly essential for encouraging critical thinking and informed decision making. So people will be they will be able to analyze ideas, challenge assumptions, and make decisions based on knowledge and reason. Then This freedom will facilitate research for finding truth through open discussion. Then it will support academic inquiry and scientific advancement. Then it will protect individual autonomy and human dignity. It will encourage creativity, innovation, and cultural development. Then it will enable peaceful criticism of government and public institutions. And finally, freedom of expression will strengthen pluralism and tolerance in a diverse society. So these are the significance of freedom of expression. Now, when we say freedom of speech and expression, every citizen or every individual having freedom of speech and expression, which is a fundamental right, that doesn't mean this right or this freedom is an absolute freedom. There are many restrictions imposed on this freedom. That restrictions are provided in Article 19, Clause 2 of the Constitution of India. The restriction starts with sovereignty and integrity of India. No one can use his freedom of speech and expression in such a manner interfering with sovereignty and integrity of India. So that is one of the restrictions. Secondly, security of the state. So even though we have a freedom of speech, we have a freedom of expression, the moment our freedom or our expression is going to affect security of the state can interfere with our freedom. State will curtail our freedom of expression. So security of the state is the second restriction. Now the third restriction is friendly relations with foreign states. No one in our country having a right to exercise his freedom of speech or expression in such a manner tarnishing or spoiling our relations with foreign countries. So we are not supposed to create or supposed to use our freedom in such a level. Then the next restriction is public order. We can use our freedom of speech and expression. It is our fundamental right. But by using that fundamental right, if we are causing disturbance of peace in this society or law and order problem in this society, then that will be considered as we are violating the freedom of speech. So public order is another limitation. So we are not supposed to use our freedom of expression in such a manner going to cause a problem with public order. Then decency or morality. When we speak something, when we use a word, when we use or when we exercise our expression, we should ensure that it is not going against the standard of decency or morality of the society. So no one can use freedom of expression in such a way or as an indecent way or going against the moral standard. That is another restriction. Then contempt of court. We can criticize the judgments, we can criticize the interpretations made by the court, but we cannot do something which interfering with the dignity of the court and judges. We may criticize the judgment. Even when we teach in class, we used to criticize many judgments. But that criticism is not against the judges or not against the court. Then it will go against the dignity of the court. That will amount to contempt of court. So we cannot use our freedom of speech or expression in such a way. Then the next important limitation is defamation. You can speak, you can express, but through our freedom of exercise of freedom of expression, we should not injure or tarnish reputation of another person. When we interfere with reputation of another person, that will amount to defamation. So we are not supposed to commit defamation. Then finally, incitement of an offense. We should not use our freedom of speech or expression in such a way provoking another people to commit a crime or inciting somebody to commit offenses. So these are the various reasonable restrictions mentioned in the Constitution. So that means we have freedom of speech and expression, but we are not supposed to exercise our freedom of speech and expression in such a way interfering with these eight restrictions. Now, interestingly, we have legislations which penalizes or which imposes criminal punishments for exercising our freedom of expression by affecting any of these aspects. We have Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, we have many legislations, we have many other uh, common law remedies against all these restrictions. So, if anybody commits, violates, or goes beyond these restrictions, they will be penalized. We have provisions, we have well established legislations. Now, interesting thing is who will determine a statement is against sovereignty and integrity of India or not? Or who suppose a statement is there and who will determine whether this statement is against the security of the state? Likewise, when a statement is there, how we can understand or what yardstick can be used to identify whether this statement will incite an offense? Likewise, decency or morality. Decency or morality standard will vary based on the society, based on the location. Now, a statement we made in Kerala may be a decent statement, but it may be an indecent statement in some other part of the country. Depends on the statement. So the problem with these restriction is how to identify the exact standard and what yardstick we will follow. Now, there are many criticisms against police actions in earlier times. Whenever they will register a case based on the violation of this reasonable restriction under the relevant legislation, there is always an allegation. These statements are not in the nature of causing public order or incitement to an offense. Police is unnecessarily initiating cases. So that is one of the major problem we are facing. We know there are freedom, we know there are restrictions, but what yardstick we will follow to determine whether a particular standard, particular sentence is going beyond the reasonable restriction or not. So this is what the reasonable restrictions and the scope of our freedom of expression. Now let us focus on our freedom of expression in education, our central theme. Well, but as I said in the beginning, when we talk about freedom of expression in education, I will be speaking from two sides. One is freedom of expression vested with teachers or academicians, and freedom of expression vested with students. Now, let us start with freedom of expression vested with teachers. Now, we being teachers, do we have freedom to speak or freedom to express everything in the class? That is the first question. Now, theoretically and legally, even if we are a teacher, we are supposed to follow the restrictions mentioned in the articles. That is the grounds which I just stated. So when we speak or when we express something in the classroom, we are supposed to see that whether our statements are within the reasonable restriction or not. If it goes out of that, that will amount to a violation of this the relevant laws. Now, other than this, considering many aspects, there are different legislations also enacted in our country. Say, for example, SC/ST's Atrocities Prevention Act. Now, this legislation prohibit using certain type of statements using the caste. That type of statements will be considered as an offense. That is also actually based on Article 19 Clause 2. That legislation is also based on 19 Clause 2 restrictions only. So even now, we have many statements. One point of time, those statements were considered as very normal. But nowadays, if we use that statement, some people will say politically it is an incorrect statement. Even though legally there is no issue, but there is a politically that statement is not correct. Political correctness will come into picture. So, being teachers, when we use a sentence in the class, we have to ensure that our statements are politically correct, legally correct, and within the scope of reasonable restrictions, or which is not going beyond reasonable restrictions. Now, yes, earlier while I was taking a class in one other institution. Then there was a discussion. One teacher told me, can we discuss politics in the class? Can we discuss religion in the class? So many questions like that came. So now I would say, being teachers, what subjects we are teaching? We are supposed to stick on the subjects which we are teaching in the class. That is the best thing. Now the problem is, why that teacher asked this question. There is one sir. He belongs to a particular political party. In his class, he always talk about that party and what good thing they have done. And sometimes he will criticize other party or other opposite parties. Now the problem with this type of expression is not at all welcoming, not at all a welcoming expression. When we use politics or any topics, if it is unrelated to our subject, I would say we should not make any biased comment. We should say only the factual situation. We are not supposed to give any opinion about that, because we teachers, we are neutral. We are neutral to all political parties. We are neutral to all religion. We are neutral to all incidents. Instead of making them aware the facts, we are not supposed to take a particular side. Now, I will tell you one incident which was I have encountered. You all might be knowing the case related to Perumbavoor. There was one murder case, not Perumbavoor murder case, Soumya case, the famous Govindachami's episode. Now the thing is, this Govindachami got death sentence from trial court for the murder he has committed. But when this case reached up to the Supreme Court has converted this death sentence to life imprisonment. One advocate Alur has appeared on behalf of him. Now, being law teachers, when we go to the class during that time, students used to ask our comments, our opinion, whether it is good, whether it is bad, and everything. Now, if any student asks me about that case, as a teacher, I have to say the law, because I am a law teacher. So, what is the law involved in that? What is legally happened in that case? Now, I said this is what is legally happened in that case. I read the case. After reading, I have identified this is legally happened in the case. And Govindachami is not supposed to get death sentence. The judiciary cannot award death sentence because law stands like that. Now, most of the students are not ready to accept me. They are all started criticizing me. Why you are favoring Govindachami? I said, I am not favoring Govindachami. I said, that is the law. Legally, these are the principles. There are certain conditions. There are certain rules. Only satisfying those conditions and rules, one will get death sentence. Simply, court cannot award death sentence. So, in Govindachami case, emotionally, social opinion may be death sentence. But legally, as a law teacher, when I am speaking, I am supposed to say the law only. I am not supposed to go with the social emotion or political opinion or anything like that. I am supposed to say the reality. What is law involved in that? So I said legally it is incorrect. He should not have been given that sentence. Only life imprisonment is possible. but many was not ready to accept. So what I was trying to convey is we can discuss, or we should discuss only our subjects first. And if at all we are moving beyond our subject, we are not supposed to take any side. We are supposed to make only a neutral stand, because the students are expecting the factual situation. They don't want a political answer. They want to know what is correct, what really happened. Then if you look at the other side from the student perspective, can the student express each and everything what they want? Now again, when a student is asking questions, keep on asking questions. Sometimes we will be okay, depends upon the class time, depend upon the syllabus, we will be okay. But every time one student keep on asking question or expressing some way of displeasure and everything, we may get problem. So from the student perspective, being a student, what is expected in the class? He should maintain the decorum of the class. He should allow the syllabus to be completed. He should continue what we can say, he should also productively contribute in the discussion in the class. So whatever way a student is exercising his freedom of expression, it is in a way to contribute the discussion in the class. That type of expression is expected from the students. Now some of the classes when we go, especially in lunch time or at 12 o'clock 12:30 time, by looking at their facial expression, we can understand, oh, at the earliest we should leave this class. So, exercising freedom of expression in education by student is not in a way discouraging these teachers, but it should be in a way to encourage more productive discussion. And that type of intervention, that type of questions, that is expected from the students. Now, the interesting thing, teaching is not, I believe, it is not a one-sided activity like a radio or something. It is like when a student asks serious questions, when a student actively participate in the discussion in the classroom, we will be more prepared. We will be compelled to more prepare. We will prepare accordingly and we will deliver more content. And we will also get an opportunity to speak more about that topic. Otherwise, we will try to finish our syllabus in such a way at the earliest we will finish. But when questions will come, we will have a meaningful discussion. So that is what freedom of expression in education from student side. Now, other than this, being teachers and students, we can exercise our freedom of expression in a way contributing something to the society by way of research, by way of writings, by way of lectures, etc. Like there are many law teachers in different part of the country. What I have seen, they used to write articles about almost every aspects in their vernacular language, and they will publish it in their local newspaper, so that the people, those who are not able to understand by themselves reading law, they will get an idea about law in their vernacular language, so they can easily read and understand. So that way teachers can, any subject, even though it is law I am focusing, any subject teacher can write from their own area. There are many things people are unaware of. So if we can express our knowledge in such a way for the benefit of public, large number of people will get the benefit. So that is one way, yes, teachers can express or exercise freedom in for contributing something to the society. And students can also do the same. They can also do academic research and they can publish articles. They can publish in vernacular language. They can publish in magazines. And now in digital world, it is very easy to write blogs. There are many students in law. They used to run blogs wherein they will publish articles relating to law, comments relating to cases. So any students from anywhere in the world can read and understand what is happening. And these are some of the blogs are very up to date. So this way, every teacher and every student can effectively contribute their expression outside the classroom also. So, this is an area which all of you can think. In your subjects, you are an expert, or everyone having some expertise in some areas. And think how we can express that knowledge, how we can share that knowledge for the benefit of society. Now, interestingly, I will tell you one thing. When I am saying publishing something in the vernacular language, that is one of the easiest way to reach to many people. One of the easiest way. Because I have got many inquiry from different journals. They used to ask, can you write something about that in Malayalam? And I used to give also. So the point is, many readers are there and they will understand by that. So we can express our freedom in such a way for the benefit of society. Even students can also do the same way they can also do. Then another area where freedom of expression education will come, that is criticisms. Do we have freedom of criticism? That is a very important aspect. Being teachers, can we criticize the policy of the government? Can we criticize the policy of the management? Can we criticize the political parties or the governance? Now, the question is very simple, but the answer is very difficult, very complicated, according to me. Now, being an Indian citizen, our constitution guarantees freedom of expression, which includes freedom to criticize. No doubt in that. But depend upon the institution you are working, there are code of conducts. And in government sector, we have government service rules. Now, in that service rules, in that code of conduct, there are many type of activities which are classified as misconducts or breach of rules. Now, you see that provisions, whether these provisions, these rules in your institution allows you to criticize, or if it is allowed, what type of criticisms are allowed. That matters. Now, it depends on the institution. Some institutions will allow any type of criticism, some institution will not allow. And even before criticizing openly, you may have a forum to raise your concerns. Like that, institutional arrangements will be there. So the answer is whether you can criticize your institutional policy or government, etc., is based on what is there in your service rules, what is there in your code of conduct. Because once you are entering into a profession or once you are entering into a institutional job, you are supposed to follow certain code of conduct. That doesn't mean you cannot express your, you cannot exercise your freedom of expression, but that will come into picture only when you are going to criticize. Okay, so the same way students also. Can the student criticize everything against the institution? Can the student criticize openly the government? Now, students are not bound by code of conducts. They are not bound by service rules. So, in most of the institutions, students having absolute freedom to criticize. That is why we are seeing everywhere in our India, students are criticizing against many of the government policies, many of the institutional policies, and they are going for strike also sometimes. So, this is what freedom of expression in education.
So many questions have come, but basically, I would start off with one question from my side. So you
Okay.
mentioned that there is a limitation. We can have political views. Any student or teacher definitely will have political views. And similarly, when it comes to criticizing a judicial decision, the three pillars, executive, judiciary, all these legislature, all these things we may be holding personal views. We have our ideologies and political views ourselves. But within an organization, when you are part of an organization, you cannot express it that way. So does it mean that there is a big conflict there between the constitutional right provided and also the other, I mean, the institutional limitation puts that into the constitutional right?
See, when we say we have freedom of expression, when our institution says you are not supposed to put something in the social media against the institution or anything, we have to see both the side. Institution having a right to run the institution. It is their professional right. They have a fundamental right to do. At the same time, we have a fundamental right. Now there is a conflict between fundamental rights of two people. Which one will be given preference? This is the problem. So when we are working in an institution, whatever be the institution, whatever be the activity, we are supposed to follow certain code of conduct, like wearing uniforms. Now, it is my fundamental right to wear any dress. Why institution is insisting me you come within this particular dress? How they can prescribe the dress code? Isn't it violative of my fundamental right to choose dress? Now, why we are accepting that type of restriction? Because it is highly essential for running an institution. So, while exercising our fundamental right, we are not supposed to interfere with fundamental right of others. This is one of the cardinal principles of our liberty. Now, here, when we say criticizing by once we are part of an institution, going against that institution and tarnishing the image of that institution in such a way, if you are exercising freedom of expression, we are not supposed to do that because we are crossing the limits. So this is why I am saying we have to balance. There must be a balancing between both the competing fundamental right. So the individual's right as well as institutional right, both are equally, it has to be taken into account. One should not be given more preference than other. And most of the institution will allow criticism in their own forum. They have many committees, they have many academic bodies, and there are many levels where you can criticize, you can make your comments, everything, rather than writing something in the Facebook. So we have to think from the institutional side also, and we have to strike a balance. So it is not interfering with our right, but it is a reasonable restriction for protecting the right of institution. I would say in that way.
And one question attached to that I would like to ask is, if, for example, government implements a policy measure, a welfare policy measure, or some other major announcement, and if the teacher or a student criticizes that, will that be considered as an attack on the government or as just a fair criticism against a policy?
This is a very interesting thing. What is fair? What is unfair? Who is going to determine? This is the issue in our country. When we say theoretically, we have grounds like incitement of offense, etc., etc. Now, what will constitute that? Whether our criticism is a fair criticism or it is ill-founded, who will determine? I will give you one example. You all might have heard about the issue of Shreya Sringal, one of the very famous case decided by our Honorable Supreme Court, Shreya Sringal versus Union of India. In the reason behind that case is when one of the political leader, a famous political leader, expired, on that day, one of the area declared hartal. Then one girl put a post in the Facebook. Many people will die, many politicians will die. Why we will observe hartal on that day? What is the need of that? Now, this statement has created huge agitation. Large number of party workers came to her house, started lot of violence. Finally, police arrested her and charged the case. Now, that particular statement, people like X and Y will die. Why we need to observe hartal? Is it inciting an offense? Isn't it derogatory? Isn't it an unfair criticism? Nobody knows. But on that particular day, the workers, they considered it is unfair. She should not have made that type of statement. And they started all this violence. Finally, these two, one girl got arrested also. And when it went to the court, court said this is a normal statement. There is nothing to do with any violation. And they set aside all the case. But the point is, the day when she made the post, till the Supreme Court or the concerned trial court quashes the FIR, she has undergone many problems. Why? Because it is a misinterpretation of what is correct, what is wrong. So the problem is when we say we are criticizing, we can criticize. But whether it is fair or unfair, somebody will determine according to their perspective. Then they will start reacting. This is the problem. And there is no answer. There is no clear answer for that. It always subjective. It will change. What is fair for me may be unfair for others. That is another problem.
And there is one question. Many times students are indisciplined and teachers scold or use satire to mend them. Then how to reform them? So as such, we can't restore to corporal punishment. So this is basically concerned about disciplining students and what is the rights or the responsibility of the teacher in that regard.
This is again like today I have seen one video where one girl commits suicide from a school. She was begging before the teacher for something, and teacher was refusing. Then she suddenly jumped from the corridor or something. Now the point is, this generation is like that. In fact, it's not like our generation, the so-called 90 kids. We have experienced through many rejections, many type of corporeal punishments. So we never bothered about that. We will only just count how many we are going to get today. And whatever words, whatever language teacher uses, we don't mind. We will just listen just like that. But the present generation having no, they don't have the patience. They don't have the mental strength to hear that. Maybe because of the societal change, the parental difference, everything may be there. But the present generation, they are not ready to take any single criticism. And if we make a criticism, they will start either crying, they will start become angry. And in our time, we never get angry, we never feel anything. Whatever teacher will say, okay, we will listen. Now, the problem is if you are going to introduce corporeal punishment or we are going to use harsh words, the mind of the students, we can't understand how they will react. So better to avoid that. We know it is definitely an indiscipline. No doubt in that. There is no other solution than criticizing them. But when we criticize, some of them will take it in a different way, and that will cause another big problem. So we have to be very careful while dealing with our students, while criticizing with our students. That's what I can say.
Yes, there is another by Avantika Gusain, where she points out that we cannot scold the children. Some students
Correct.
speak very rudely to teachers and often do not even realize their behavior is disrespectful. They frequently come without their books or notebooks and give excuses. We forgot them. And bigger concern is when parents do not support or cooperate with the teachers. So it's a very big question. So I think you got it.
Exactly, exactly. I think we all know in our generation, if I will go and tell to my mother, today I got, obviously I won't say, but somehow my mother will come to know, okay, I got something from my teacher. She will say, that's very good. You could have get more. She never support me. She always take the side of teacher. Now, even for a small scolding or a small incident, when the child will tell the same to the mother or father will say, okay, I will ask the teacher. I will come and ask the teacher, or tomorrow I will immediately call. Then the student is getting, or that child is getting a confidence that whatever he is doing is correct, teacher is wrong always. Because father is supporting, mother is supporting. That parenting is creating this trouble. Rather than that, If the parent will explain, you might have done some mistake. This is the duty of the teacher to correct students. Like that, if the parent starts convincing him, then the child will get convinced. But in most of the case, parents never do that. They will immediately say, how dare the teachers to ask questions like that? They may get angry also. In front of the child, they will make some slogans against the teacher. Then students will get that confidence, and next day he will behave much more rude than the previous time. So this is what actually happening. So I think some sort of parental counseling is required. That will help the children behavior will change.
And actually, when you made the presentation, there was one point I noted, that is teachers
Mhm.
are bound by the service rules, but
Yeah.
students have more freedom to express their opinion.
Yes.
They can go to the streets. And there is a question by Anupama, which says that the school boards, that's what I understand, they support the student perspective and their emotions more, and teachers' point of view is ignored. So is that something you agree with?
To an extent, that is correct. The thing is, see, when we say something in the class, we may be addressing a 30 or 40 students. Now, majority of the students will believe what we are saying is correct. See, the point is, we are whatever way we are taking class, it is having an influence in their mind, and it will remain in their mind. Their mind is in a formative stage. So whatever we will speak, they will absorb something, and that trace will remain in their mind. So that is why I said teachers are bound by these service rules. We are not supposed to take any side. We should say the facts. This is what has happened. Then students will take it anyway. That is their problem. But we are not supposed to take a side. Now, when it comes to a student, if a student criticizes, his own fellow students may not support him. Sometimes that will happen. The thing is, their mind is immature. So whatever criticism they will make, even parents also, society also, management also, students' criticism will not be counted much serious than others. But when it comes to a teacher, when we suppose today I am criticizing the government in front of my students, many of the students will believe what I am saying is correct. They don't go behind that and search what is true, what is. Uh, I may have my own politics. I may trying to say my politics only in that, but the students will believe. So that we are not supposed to do. That is why I said every institution having that code, every institution having that restrictions. We are bound by that because we are teachers. We are supposed to teach the class. Depends on the syllabus and topics we are having. But when it comes to student, let them criticize because that will give confidence also. Sometimes through criticism, sometimes through protest only, they will get true knowledge. And that is also required. So that is why students are free to do that. Now the point is when students making more criticism, teachers' perspective will subdued. In any management, they will give more preference to the students rather than teachers. The reason is teachers are ready to accept anything, or the institutional people are ready to accept. But students never accept. They will come and go. So they wanted then and there some solution. Their perspective is valid. So management will take a clever decision. Okay, what you said is correct. Okay, we will do like this. And teachers will feel they are not listening to them. But teachers are there. They will continue again for many years. So it is like a balancing approach. In fact, it is not giving over preference to students, but it is like a balancing between institutional interest with students' interest. Sometimes management will play a very clever role also. They will accept every demands of the students, and they will say we will do like this, we will do next year. Never do that, but we will give assurance. So that's a tactics also. That is why. So don't worry about teacher's perspective. It will be heard. Ultimately, all are equally important for the management.
And Amia Ranjan has asked a question. We often encounter situations where protecting institutional discipline and the code of conduct have to limit certain forms of student expression. At the same time, meaningful criticism and the discussion of controversial issues are essential for developing critical thinking, democratic values, and higher order cognitive skills. Actually, freedom of expression education is rightly about this. There is no doubt about that. So this creates a pedagogical and legal challenge. I think you will be able to address that. How can teachers balance their responsibility to maintain a respectful, orderly learning environment while safeguarding students' freedom of expression? I think that's a good question.
Yeah, this is one of the things which we all need to do in the class, in fact. See, we have to change our pedagogy. I think we should follow somewhat Socratic method. To what extent we will get time, I don't know, because everybody is worried about the syllabus and time. I know that. But at least once in a month, maybe 20 minutes, we should go by Socratic method or that pedagogy we will adopt. We should give a topic for the student. Let them discuss about that. Ask their opinion. Let some of them will criticize, some of them will agree, some of them will have a neutral approach. Let them do it. Let them interact. So that discussion we should facilitate. Now, if we can facilitate discussion on a topic related, our syllabus related topic, well and good. And that will be good for all the class. And through that way, we can encourage their critical thinking rather than bringing some topic from politics or religion or something like. So that type of change we need to incorporate in our pedagogy. That will be helpful. I think that can address this problem.
And Professor Dr. Varghese Padalukar has asked this question. Can you please explain legal position in class behavior? There are many recent judgments supporting teachers too. Can you specify legal aspects of correcting student behavior? There are many recent judgments supporting teachers.
Yes, yes, yes. Especially from Kerala High Court, we have cases like using sticks, especially chural in our Malayalam. This There was a case charged against a teacher for using these sticks. When there were some fight or something was going on, then student teacher interfered to disperse that. So he used that stick. Now some of these parents filed a case against him because corporeal punishment is banned. Then how can he use? Then, fortunately, the judiciary take a step. In such a situation, they can use sticks. They quash that FIR. So that was happened. But that doesn't mean in all other situations we can use it. So even otherwise also, if you look at our normal common law that is applicable in our country also, which is developed through many judicial decisions, we have a defense that is quasi-parental authority. That is a judicial principle established by the court. Quasi-parental authority. A teacher is equivalent to a parent. So for correcting a student, a teacher can take reasonable measures. The thing is reasonable measure, not more than that. Now the point is what is reasonable, what is unreasonable. So if he use one stick and one beating or one blow, may be reasonable. But when we allow teachers to use stick, I don't know whether how many they will give. So it will go beyond that. Actually, this, if you see one point of time, all these corporeal punishments were allowed. But when the nature of this corporeal punishment increased, when it is become unreasonable, then the law started saying you shall not use it. Because if the law allows it, definitely it will be misused. Definitely it will be used in such a way to cause harm. So that is why law says you shall not use it. But even now, even though law prohibits that, if you use a measure for reasonably correcting, there is no problem in that. That is what the law stands now. But unfortunately, when you use a reasonable measure, if any parent is not interested in that, he will file a case immediately. And ultimately, court will quash that FIR. You will be set free. But sometimes it will take 3 to 5 years. All that 3 to 5 years, you will have to suffer. So because of that, many of the teachers, even if they wanted, even if they know this, they won't do anything in this way. because unnecessarily we are taking all the troubles. Why to take this trouble? So that is what the problem. So law is in favor of teachers, and even when the students commit suicide, the law says teacher can criticize, teacher can scold, because it is reasonably for their welfare, for correcting them. But the problem is we have used our reasonable measures to correcting we criticized. If he commits suicide or attempted, then entire society will go behind us. Then we will be in trouble. Maybe court will rescue us, but the society, media, everybody will be behind us, and we will lose our life. So this is the problem with using it. So even though it is legal, we are very much what we can say. Most of the teachers are reluctant and afraid of using these measures, even if it is required for their correctional method. That is the truth. I hope I answered father's
Yes.
question.
Yes, yes. So I think we'll come to I think we have one more question. The schools can't even suspend a child to correct the child. How far is this right? How can the students learn values? I think that very quick answer.
Government has to take a measure. Government has to take a measure. Now the government is in favor of students only. You are whatever mistakes they are committing, you are not supposed to suspend them, terminate them. Earlier there was a situation you can write in their TC. You can use red ink, but now you cannot use because everything is in favor of students. Government is more in favor of students, but that scenario has to be changed. Otherwise, that will adversely affect our coming generation because unbridled freedom will always cause problem. There has to be some restriction, and we have to think what is reasonable, what is unreasonable, what can be done in the classes, what cannot be done. There has to be a proper code of conduct, and then the problem may be solved.
I think Professor Dr. Varghese Pandalukan has also raised the similar thing. Here we need clarity on what is reasonable and what is not with respect to correcting student behaviors to safeguard
Correct, correct,
educational
correct,
process.
correct, correct. Exactly, exactly. That is required. That is required. Even see, there was one incident in our Kerala. One, I think, girl committed suicide after catching a copy in exam. So when the teacher caught this copy, immediately she went out and committed suicide or attempted to commit suicide. Now the teacher was in trouble. Everybody was criticizing her. Now what this teacher has done is her duty only. They wanted to see when we are in an invigilation duty, our duty to see whether somebody is copying or not. So if he does that, that is a legal thing. So like that, we need to have some sort of clarity. What father said is very clear because every teacher is vested with some duty. When he or she is exercising that duty or performing his duty, there should not be unnecessary cases, unnecessary issues. That protection has to be there. Otherwise, nobody will interfere with this type of indiscipline. That problem will come. That will adversely affect student community only as a whole. So there has to be some sort of clarity on that. There has to be.
Actually, more worried teachers are responding. Parveen Kumar has said that what are the rights of the teacher because everyone just wants to blame. So,
No, the thing is, we teachers are become more insecure now. Anytime, everything, anything can happen like that.